Spiss nisimgħu dwar in-nuqqasijiet fl-industrija tal-kostruzzjoni. Sabiex jikkontribwixxu lejn dan id-dialogu blenti differenti, Studju Urban ħa l-inizjattiva li jniedi Architecture Alive, serje ta' taħdidiet minn arkitetti magħrufa dwar l-arti tal-bini.
I've always started from the point of view that all buildings are actually about people. So whether it's a single family house or a housing project or a hospital or an art centre or whatever it is, we always start from the idea of what's going to make it successful for them, how they're going to engage with each other, how we're going to tempt them into a building, etc. How do people find their own place within a building? And sometimes it's very, very important in hospitals, for example, how do you make people feel comfortable? So it's all about people, but of course there's a whole other series of agendas, cultural agendas, which people recognise, and that brings me onto an issue which is to do with which is what I'm talking about when I'm in Malta, is how do you make buildings which are both part of a continuity of history, but at the same time they're also rooted to the place that they're in, the context in which they are. And I think our problem in many ways today is that buildings are dislocated from the place they're in, and we've become a sort of internationalized, globalized business in a way, and I think that's damaging the nature of the character of individual places around the world. I gave a talk here about 15 years ago to the Maltese Society of Architects, and it was just before Malta joined the EU, ironic, I'm here now just as Britain's leaving the EU, but anyhow. But I said to them then, I said, you should all take a trip to the Irish Republic, because I lived there for a little while and I've worked there, and I watched what happened over 30 years of too much money arriving too quickly in a very sensitive landscape, in particular the western seaboard of Ireland, and hundreds and hundreds of bungalows have been built all over the coast. And you know, to be fair, it has kind of destroyed a landscape which was very beautiful. And I feared that Malta was going to go the same way, because it's such a small country, Malta, you know, and what could happen in Ireland in 30 years could happen in Malta in 10 years, very, very easily. So I think it's always difficult when people live in a place to stand aside and look at it almost as an outsider, but I think this is a very, very special place. I can't think of anywhere quite like it, actually. Urban Malta can be so intensely beautiful. I mean, not just the set pieces like Valletta and the other towns in the island, but also just incidental little villages and what have you can be incredibly beautiful. And I think it's inherent that people should pick up on that beauty and what they're doing with new buildings. You have this wonderful stone, which is an incredible thing to have. To have an entire country built out of one stone is absolutely astonishing. Can you pick up on all those qualities and at the same time continue culture into the 21st century? So you make 21st century buildings which are clearly of their time, and that's what we should be doing. You know, we should never look back and pretend that life doesn't change. That's what William Morris always taught us, that the continuity of history is perpetual change. That's what he said, and I agree with him. All countries in Europe are in the same boat in a way. I mean, we all have the problem of indiscriminate development which can threaten the character of a place. I mean, I think there are some countries, I think in Spain and Portugal, where there has been some wonderful architecture developed which has really contributed particularly towards their historic city centres, but is very contemporary. But I think we all have the same problems in many ways. I think there's much more of an, dare I say it, an architectural culture in some countries, like in Italy or in Scandinavia, for example, than we have in the UK, which is not a shining light at all. We need to make buildings that work, and also I think in these days where we're very conscious of sustainability, we need to make buildings that work and will last for hundreds of years. I mean, we're here in Valletta. These buildings have been here for a long time, and they're constantly finding new uses. What tends to happen now, you know, I'm old enough to see buildings that I've seen being built, being knocked down within my lifetime, which is crazy, really. People don't notice what's going on right under their own noses quite often until it's too late. And they don't see the incremental changes, and over a series of years, each little incremental change adds up until suddenly after a lifetime they look back and they realize that actually a place has been changed irrevocably and usually for the worst. The Maltese have got a fantastic sense of national identity, I think. It's a very small country, but absolutely unique. It's not like anywhere else I've ever been to. And I think that identity is something to be incredibly proud of, but also to be cherished.